This year marks the 80th anniversary of 3AW on the air. The original call sign, not the original building, but it's been on the air in this spot, on this dial, for 80 long years.
It's the same age as the Manchester Unity.
And during this year we've looked at the overnight birds, what were they called, night owls?
Mm-hmm.
We've looked at afternoon programs in the morning and the interviews.
Sure.
And we're going through the history of the place, through the sound archives.
What's the theme tonight?
The theme is breakfast, the breakfast radio.
Yes.
An important start to the day, always on a talk station like 3AW.
Very much so.
And I can go back as late as 50s, 60s when Happy Hammond
Yes.
was one of the original breakfast announcers.
Sure.
On 3AW.
And so was Jim Wood in the
And
mid-50s.
very, very successfully so too, with Happy before television.
Mm-hmm.
Then a man called Jeff Mannion was brought over here from Perth, Western Australia. He was a very, very high-profile DJ over there, playing the top hits of the day, and he was brought over to be the new breakfast announcer, and a very successful one too.
They had a huge promotion for him when he arrived.
They did. Into Collins Street, the Australia Hotel. He arrived in a huge custom line with the big fins.
Yeah, it's a big motorcade like the president of the USA.
He was mobbed by the crowd.
Yes, he was.
Didn't really know him, but the hype and promotion engendered that interest.
It worked, for sure.
So the breakfast program was very important under Jeff Mannion, and then later Peter James, the father of Darren James, who did breakfast for a long time here. With who was the dog? The name of the dog he had, Benjamin.
I can't recall, was it?
Benjamin,
Maybe.
and he was part of the crew.
Yeah, very popular brekkie man was Peter James.
So we won't take you back to the 1960s, but certainly to memories of Peter James.
The next chapter of the 3AW story, and the old girl
She'll be 70 on February the 22nd next year.
70 years of age, and a man who did breakfast here for many, many years, and then afternoons, Peter James. Good evening.
Good evening, Bruce, and hello, Phil.
Yes, hello, Pete. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Pete was an announcer on 3BA. Is it 3BA Ballarat?
That's correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you were up there. Well, you had the children's club, didn't you?
Yes, the Bluebirds. They're all known as Bluebirds.
Yes, yeah.
And we had, I don't know how many members, but we used to keep a card of each day of the year, and then we would send them a Cheerio on their birthday, you see.
Right.
And we had some very unusual names, and this is absolutely true, but one day we were reading down the card, a birthday, and the little lad's surname was Duck, and you know what his parents had called him?
Donald.
Correct.
Oh, that's
the poor
shocking.
kid.
That's absolutely true.
Oh, that's dreadful.
How long did you stay there at 3BA,
Probably
Peter?
went on to change his name to Dewey.
Yes, I was there about 11 years, Phil.
All right.
And then 3AW came on the scene for you, Peter?
Yes, that's correct. I heard that someone was leaving. It was, I can't think. He went to the ABC, but I had a tip-off that someone was leaving. And
Ralph Rickman, Peter Evans,
Graham Evans?
Graham Evans.
No, prior to that.
Right.
And I had auditioned actually when I was at school, and then I got the tip-off, and I applied again, auditioned, and I got the job.
So the breakfast program was first up for you, was it, Peter?
No, the Heinz Supper Show was my first stint, really.
What year was that, Peter?
Oh, that was about 1959.
Right.
And the Heinz Supper Show used to be 2 hours from 11 o'clock at night till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And sponsored, of course, by Heinz Goods. And I shared that with Dennis Gibbons. We used to do alternate nights during the week. And it was a lot of fun. We used to plug all the Heinz subjects and have a cup of soup during the evening and things like that.
Very gentlemanly, Peter.
Oh, very much so.
Perhaps you replaced Jim Tregonning, did you?
No, I'll think of it in a moment.
Anyway, from there, of course, what was next?
I did, Jeff Mannion was doing the breakfast show for quite a lot of years, and then they decided to have a bit of a switch around, and Jeff went on to afternoons and I went on to breakfast. And there I stayed for about 6 years, I think.
The early mornings didn't worry you with a young family?
No, not really. I'm no early riser, but when you've got to do it, you've got to do it.
Yeah.
So that was it.
But I suppose the later years, when afternoons loomed and some great personalities joined you for afternoon radio.
Indeed, particularly David McGee and John Masters, of course. Many will remember John Masters for his programmes Choice of the People, which went for many years on 3AW. They were half-hour segments right throughout the day. Well, when John finished up, the afternoons were free, and I was invited to join David McGee, and we used to do a program for Pioneer Tours, and John Masters originated it, and it used to be just a straight read of commercials and about trips you could take on Pioneer with Ansett. And when David and I got together, we found that we had the identical sort of flair for comedy, if you like. Our sense of humour was very similar, and what we did was then we used to fool about with the trips, and we used to send them up unmercifully. And I used to be a little old lady who sat at the back of the coach and gave the driver hell, you know, wanting to know, and she wanted to know where the toilet was and all the rest of it. And we used to send these trips up unmercifully, and it wasn't until we'd been doing it for quite some time that we found out that Sir Reginald Ansett used to always listen to the program because he'd be driving about in his car, and when he was, he'd say to his chauffeur, "Would you put 3AW on? I want to hear the Ansett Pioneer program." And of course we'd fool about with these programs like you wouldn't believe, send them up, and we used to say the food's terrible and all the rest of it. And he always used to listen, and all he would say, we found out later from his chauffeur, was, the silly so-and-sos.
Yeah. There was no rumour that was the demise of Ansett, was it?
No, we're a little ahead of that.
So, Peter, who were some of the big names at 3AW when you joined?
Well, there was Des Telfair. Many will remember Des as a great newsman who did the Saturday night program While Melbourne Sleeps, and he used to go right round the city and suburbs, and he'd cover road accidents and, well, just any newsy thing, and he'd interview people up and about during Saturday nights in Melbourne. John Masters, as I said, Choice of the People. Of course, the great Norman Banks used to do mornings, and he used to do the footy too with Doug Haywood, and later Bill Jacobs. Graham Evans produced Monitor, which was a news program which took news items from all around the world. That went to air at about 8:30 at night. Jeffrey Mannion, Dennis Gibbons, Ralph Rickman, Fred Tupper, just to name a few.
And there's the important breakfast page in our diary of 80 years broadcasting. Peter James, a very successful component to 3AW and certainly in the breakfast area.
And greatly loved too.
Let's go up in time now to listen to breakfast in the 1970s. And there was a bit of current affairs in it. There was news talk, and Paul Barber played a very big part in those 70s and 80s breakfast programs.
Did those serious programs work in those days?
Well, yeah, it did to a degree. John Blackman anchored it, which was the light and shade of it all.
Okay.
But Paul Barber played a big part in that breakfast program.
Well, you've got a fantastic little past life, haven't you?
Oh, yes.
You've done everything. But listen, tell us about growing up in Fitzroy, because I never realised this. That old Channel 7 Tally Theatre used to be your local theatre when you were a child.
Yes, that was the old Regent Theatre.
This is Ivan Hutchinson.
One of the great theatres, suburban theatres in the times when they were really like palaces, where you got away from your surroundings into this Hollywood dream world, and it was a great occasion to go to the movies. I think my parents went twice a week. I can't remember what nights, probably Saturday. Saturday was always the hardest night to get into, but they used to go twice a week, and I used to go with them.
And were they the big influence on you actually getting your love of movies? How did that all come about?
Yes, well, I suppose my father used to be a great lover of live theatre. When he was a younger man, he spent some time in England, and I think he loved theatre. He got to know theatre there. But I could never come at theatre because it was a bit expensive, and in the days when I was a young man, especially when I was growing up, we didn't have a great deal of money, and it was much cheaper and easier and more exciting and fulfilling to me to go to the movies. And of course there was the Saturday matinee, and spent, as you know by that introduction, and that's quite true, we really used to, there's a whole gang of us used to go to the movies and watch the serials and watch the westerns, and then go around to this place that was quite near where I lived, which was one of the last stables left in Melbourne. It used to be a hansom cab stable, and they used to have some of the bodies of the hansom cabs there and some old drays and things like that, and we used to use that as our playground when they didn't chase us out of there.
And did you recreate the scenes from the movies?
Oh, absolutely.
Because we did when I was at
With great gusto.
lad.
And indeed, I saw a film...
Zorro pushing back the sort of roof. The roof always seemed to be caving in on those Zorro serials until about,
with the spikes coming down. I mean, that was always... And then next week, you'd see them, they were gone from there. They just got out before it hit the ground. I remember getting very upset at an episode of Flash Gordon or one of those things and saying to my mother, but the serial was called The End of Flash. I mean, he's gone. I know he's dead because this is what the serial says, but no, I needn't have worried. Next week he was back in action again.
And there, Paul Barber, who did Breakfast for some time, with the lovely Ivan Hutchinson, greatly loved film reviewer, film critique, and film host.
Good to hear them again.
Let's now look at the 1980s, when I was lucky enough to join 3AW with John Blackman, and we created a story time with Blackers and Uncle Roy.
It's become legendary, hasn't it?
And we put that on at 5 to 7 every morning, replayed at 4 o'clock every afternoon.
Was that syndicated around Australia?
I think at one time it was. Yeah. Blackers and Uncle.
Hello, boys and girls. Story time yet again.
Hello, Uncle Roy.
Hello, sweetness and what? You got dressed early?
Yeah, we break up tomorrow.
Oh, are you having a concert or something to do before you leave?
I'm playing in a play.
Oh, what is it now? What's the play?
It's called The Merchant of Venice.
It's not very Christmassy to me, I didn't think it.
No, it's not very Christmassy.
What are you playing in it, dear?
I'm playing the merchant who sells toys.
That was a man, it wasn't a woman.
Yeah, well, in Shakespeare's days, men were women and women were men. You have to be very careful of that, dear. It'll put you on a very wrong train in life, you know.
Hasn't done you any harm, sister?
Oh, you're insinuating that I'm a snatchkin and I?
No, sister, no, but you've got a bigger moustache than Uncle Roy. Kiddies don't know that, but they're as innocent as the newborn babe.
I don't believe that one iota.
Royston, can you get on with the rotten story? Tom Thumb, episode 9. Oh, yeah, I forgot it, Eddie. It was very tiring trying to keep the king and queen amused. Tom didn't like it when the ladies of the court picked him up and petted him, as though he was some small, tame animal. They petted him? Yes. They put him on the palm of their hands and poke him and tickle him. Oh, that's dreadful. Oh, Royston.
Sounds awful to me, Roy.
Sounds like a lot of fun to me. They even knelt down on the grass before the windows of his little house and peeped in at him.
That's a bit rude, Uncle Roy.
Yeah, get on with it. And once, when he had even drawn the curtains, the Queen was very angry because she put her finger right through. So poor Tom began to wish he could be back in the cottage with his own mother and father.
And Mr. Royston, would that be where that term peeping Tom came from?
Oh, that's clever, yes. It probably did.
That's very good, Stinky.
The ladies of the court peeping in little Tom's...
Yeah, that's right, peeping Tom.
So poor Tom began to wish he were back in the cottage. Had you heard that? He grew pale and thin, and he didn't laugh or sing or dance anymore.
I'm not surprised.
He tried hard to think of some way in which he could get home again. How would you get home again?
What do you mean?
Well, from if you were lost.
I'd call a silver top.
Yeah, but that wasn't around in those days.
And do you realise, Royston, Sister Earl keeps murine on a windowsill for peeping Toms?
And a little look and eavesdrop onto breakfast over the years on 3AW.
Good to hear it again. Yes, celebrating 80 years of 3AW.
Another page in our diary next Sunday at this time. It's 9:45. Wow!